Hi, I'm Bill the Buddha Dickens. Welcome to the show. On this video, we're going to talk about funk techniques. We're also going to talk about the Buddha rope, and we're also going to do some playing. So sit tight and let's have some fun.
All right, my man, are you ready to give it all up today?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's jump right into it. Let's start off with some funk bass playing. What are some of the key components to the style and some of the kind of behind the scenes tips to how you would introduce the idea to somebody?
Well, you start off with the thumb, of course, because that's part of funk playing. And you know, the thumb is really the force, the driving force behind playing funk music. So let me give an example of how it would work.
Is there a particular part of the thumb that you're striking the string with there?
Yes. Usually you're striking it on the side right here of the thumb. And the reason why, because if you try to hit on top of the string, you won't get the thumping effect. So most of the time, most bass players thump on the side of the thumb. Now you also have the index finger for plucking, and what I normally do is just play like a pluck groove, and then I'll add the thumb in. So I'm just going to play something with just the index finger, so you can get an idea. Now, when you put both of them together, the thumb and the index finger, then you have a combination of the plucking and also a combination of the thumping. And I'll play something so that you can see how both of them work all together. Now the hammer approach stems from basically taking the hand and slapping up against the strings when you're not using your thumb or when you're not plucking. And the best way to show that is just break it down to its simplest form. And that would sound something like this. Now, a lot of times you may end up getting a note, so the best way to get rid of the note is to flatten your hand. Make sure your hand is flat, because if it's cuffed like this, it's going to end up sounding like a note. So always keep the hand flat and try to hit the string right here in the middle of the finger. Now, in a situation where you're playing a funk groove and you're using your thumb and using your index finger and using the slap, you can come up with all sorts of different combinations of grooves. So I'll show one, and then I'll show another one with all the fingers. Now, when you slap or hammer on with the fingers, now you're replacing the faulty or the ghost note with an actual note. So when I slap with the fingers, this time basically I'm slapping on top of the string to actually get the note, opposed from just slapping and getting a ghost note or an effect.
But the note is actually being generated by the left hand as opposed to the right hand in that case, right?
It starts off with the left hand. Okay, now you follow through with the right hand after you hit the note with the left hand. So when you're striking the note or hammering the note, you get the actual note. Now, when you pull, you get the note as well. And when you thump, you get the note as well. So that's really the breakdown of that. So you can hammer, pull, and then hit with your thumb. Now I'll show an example using 2 fingers opposed from all 4 fingers.
Is there a simple exercise that a player could use to begin to integrate this hammer concept, hammering or slapping concept with the left hand?
Oh yeah. You can start off with just basically a chromatic scale, and just don't even use the right hand at first. Just get the feel of your hand striking the string. And what you want to do is try to get a balance between all of the fingers, actually. But what you want to do is try to get this note here to sound as strong or close to as strong as the pluck. So that takes some time, but once you get used to it, and you use this combination of using the fingers to strike or to tap the note, and then plucking and also thumping as well, then you sound like 3 people at times. So it's a pretty cool technique.
So in addition to the slapping with the right hand and the plucking with the right hand, are there some other techniques that you can utilize with the right hand in funk playing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have the basic thumb technique, of course, where you strike the string. You also can pull from over the top of the string or underneath the string, and that creates more of a distorted kind of effect. playing like this, pulls from this. So when you use the index finger for the pull, the thumb for the thump, and also to pull under the string, you come up with some really nice grooves and some different effects as well coming off of the strings. Something like this.
So what kind of exercises would you recommend for getting the pull technique happening when you're going over the string?
Again, you can use the chromatic technique, and by just placing your fingers up here at the beginning of the fretboard, and also starting with your thumb coming down, and just matching your fingers together so that you have coordination.
All right, now the other variation of that is, of course, when you're pulling up using the underside of the string with the thumb nail. Are there some exercises for that?
Yeah, I use the chromatic approach because of just trying to coordinate each finger to the pull up or pull down. So the same way applies to this.
Now, obviously, each of those pulls have a different sound about them. Can we hear an example of a groove that incorporates both types, the over the string and the under the string pull?
Sure.
Now, having spent numerous months on the road with you and hearing countless solos, I've heard you do a lot of different kind of things, and one of the real showstoppers was a lot of the triplet kind of things you do that I believe incorporate some of these techniques. Are you willing to share with us some of those?
Yes. Yeah, I am. With the whole triplet technique, it started, of course, you know, with back in the days with Larry Graham. So the basic triplet technique is like with the thumb going, striking twice with the thumb and plucking once with the finger. But over the years that changed into a hammer-on, and there's many ways of doing that, but I'll show the basic way of doing it first, and then I'll show you a little bit more complicated way of doing it. So, and that's.
So how do you develop speed on this pluck, hammer, slap triplet technique?
Well, you start off, of course, with the pluck, then the hammer, then the slap. Okay? So you have to, they're all triplets, so you have to just take it very slow at first. So it starts off like this. Then you can speed it up a little bit more. A little bit more. So you get a roll.
All right, so what about those triplets when I see you get your left hand and move all about the neck while your right hand is doing some kind of combination? What's happening with those kind of triplets?
Well, you have, of course, the pluck, and then you have the hammer, and then you have the slap, but it's not as hard as when you reach back and hit it. You stay close to the string. So, and you just start doing that over and over again, and then you change the notes by just hammering down with this finger. So I'll play an example of that. Now I'm going to start to move around the strings.
Smoking. All right, so last but not least here, let's see if we can get you to do 8 or 16 bars for us that kind of incorporates, all these concepts, the slap, the pluck, both kinds of pulls, your hammer, and maybe some of these triplet licks.
All right.
You have to take all of these killer ideas and be able to use them in a musical situation. It's no secret that the drummer and the bass player have to lock in. What are some of the specific techniques that you like to use to make sure that you're really locking it in with the drummer?
Well, the thing I really focus on, starting with, is the bass drum, because you have to match what you're doing with the bass drum in order for all this stuff to work. And when the bass drum starts to move, or you get a pulse from that, then whatever you're doing here, somehow, some way, it's going to fit that bass drum, or it's senseless. I know the bass player from Tower Power once said, Rocco, said that he used to take his bass and put it, the back of the bass, and put it up on the bass drum of Dave Garibaldi's bass drum, and that's how he would feel the pulse. Which I thought was pretty intense, because if I do that, I'd probably get a headache from it. But also I focus on the snare, because the 2 and 4 is very important. Sometimes playing this technique, you want to leave space, because the drummer may play ghost notes. So if you have ghost notes and then you have hammer-ons going at the same time, it gets pretty confusing. So I concentrate on the snare, and then sometimes I may concentrate on the drum rolls, because if a drummer is doing a certain kind of roll, sometimes I'm lucky, I may do the same thing, but I don't do it all the time, because he'll get pissed off at me, and then that'll be it. But those are the main things I really concentrate on. And also sometimes you may want to concentrate on the hi-hat, depending on if the drummer's playing a syncopated kind of rhythm on the hi-hat. You may want to go along with that, because with this style you're really covering the bass drum with the thump and the hammer-on, and you're covering the snare with the pluck, and then with the combination of all three, you're covering basically hi-hat, snare, and bass drum, and sometimes the toms. So I try to concentrate on everything as an individual sound, an individual rhythm. So that's how I do it.
Well, what do you say that we hit the stage and hear what all this sounds like with the band?
All right, that'll be great. A lot of people ask me about the 7-string bass and why do I play this monstrous instrument. Well, for one, it's pretty easy to play. It's not hard at all. And the strings and the range that you have on here, you can do some incredible things with it. Let's start with the 4 strings. You still have your EADG here, okay? Basically, so you still have the basic range of a 4-string here. You have a low B, which is like a 5-string here. You also have a high C, which is like your 6-string up here. And you also, with the 7-string, you have an added F on the top. So that'll give you even more range than a 6-string.
Buddha, you've been playing the bass for over 36 years now, and I happen to know firsthand from doing so much touring with you that you are an extremely diligent practicer. Why? What is it about, that after having played so long that inspires you and still motivates you to continue to practice like that?
Well, for one, I'm always searching for stuff I can't do, and that in itself is something that I always keep searching for. There's so much information out here, even though there's like 8 or 9 notes to music, period. There's so many different combinations. The other thing is that music is spiritually a really great healer for me, and I really love writing songs and that sort of thing on my bass because it really inspires me. Between the practicing and the writing, it's still, I'm still, even after all these years, still very inspired to practice.
I've noticed that your practicing is usually a combination of some very regimented kind of concepts where you have the stopwatch and the metronome and that kind of thing, and then other times you'll appear to be doing more free-form kind of things. Do you have a recommendation for players as to how they should kind of split the difference between both of those approaches to practicing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you practice with the Buddha rope, for one, the Buddha rope is dedicated to strengthening your hands, and basically you're playing scales and phrases that you've already memorized before you put the rope on. On the other hand, when you're dealing with just like playing phrases and that sort of thing, you have to divide the two up, so you deal with the ear training and that sort of thing from the 2-5-1 perspective. So that's how I would advise musicians to use this technique.
All right, so now that we got some of this beginning bass stuff out of the way here, let's get into some really technical stuff. All right, I'll tell you what, the Buddha rope. Let's talk about it. This has got to be one of the more interesting and innovative things that you've managed to integrate into your practice regimen. What is it? How did it come about? And how do you like to use it in your practice sessions?
Well, I happen to have a prototype of the Buddha rope.
All right.
This technique actually came about from me listening to upright players and as well as seeing them. I would, when I see them make a switch from the upright to the electric bass, they would have all this incredible speed. Well, I said to myself, there must be another way of doing this, so that I don't have to try to play an upright and then switch from that to electric bass. So it started off with rolls and rolls of toilet paper, and you can ask my mom about that because she would always look around for the toilet paper. And she kind of knew where it was. It would always come up missing. So, but then from that, then the Buddha rope came about. So basically, this rope has changed my whole technique of playing from my whole funk technique, from that to the finger technique as well. So it's like weightlifting. You start with a certain weight, of weights, and then you elevate up to the next amount of weights, and then so forth and so on. So the Buddha rope has really been probably the biggest secret behind my playing, and people worldwide have asked me, how did I get that speed, and how was I able to sound so clean and accurate? And I said, well, I have a secret, but it took me almost 20 years to tell it to the world. So here it is. This is the Buddha rope. And what you do with the Buddha rope is basically you take it and you place it under the strings. it's probably best to start off with just a 4-string bass. You know, the guys that have the 5-string, I would recommend pull out your old Fender bass and use the Buddha rope for that. So you start off with basically putting the rope under your last fret, the 24th fret, or if you have a 19th fret bass, on the 19th fret. Then, by taking your hand, there's a series of exercises that I do, which start off with basically with the 2 fingers. And what you need is a metronome, and you need a clock and a TV. Why you need a TV? Well, you don't want to think about yourself doing this for like 20 minutes, because you'll end up getting serious cramps or you get bored with it. So turn on your favorite football game or your basketball game, what have you, sit there with the metronome, have that going, and then have a big clock in front of you, and you just sit there and just kind of just cool out and just work on these 8th note exercises. So I start off with basically playing with the 1st and 2nd finger, going back and forth like this. Okay, so while I'm doing that, I'm making sure that the notes are even, also that I'm not trying to speed up or slow down, but just stay real consistent. So I do that for 5 minutes a string, and then you go up to the next string after 5 minutes. All right, then you go to the next string after 5 minutes, and also the next string. Now, that's 20 minutes in all. So now when you change over, now you take your thumb, and this is the other thing you do, is that you take your thumb, and you go and you start banging on the bridge, like this. Now the whole thing about that is that you don't want to like hit the string like you're slapping. In other words, you don't want to turn your wrist and go like this. That's incorrect. You always want to keep the hand straight. It's almost you have to think about like you're bouncing a basketball, keeping the hand straight, not doing this, because if you do this with a basketball, it's going to roll away. So the same approach, 5 minutes of string. So 40 minutes in all. And hopefully you can hang in there and, don't pass out or get bored and you want to throw your bass back in the closet, what have you. Now, to use this technique in terms of the left hand, you take the rope and you move it up. Well, that's kind of nice. You move it up, and the reason why you move it up, because you still have almost the same amount of intensity that you have up here, but you want to be able to have intensity up here so that this hand can start to develop and get stronger. So now, starting off with the 2 fingers, you play basically again just chromatically up this way to the end of the fret where the rope is, and then back down, and back up, and back down. So it looks something like this. And the thing you got to do is press down hard, because if you press down soft, then you're not really accomplishing anything. It's like the same thing like when you're lifting weights. You gotta pull them all the way up, So that's what I'm doing. Just matching with my 2 fingers, making sure that the notes are even. Now you don't hear no notes because of the rope, but your hands are getting stronger from the right and the left. And the fingers are starting to develop, and muscles are starting to develop that you normally would never use. The same way with the thumb. You would take your hand, and I need to explain this, that when you hit the bass from here, you want to make sure that this part of your hand is hitting the bridge, so that what you're doing is you're strengthening this part of the arm, so that you can get more force out of the arm when you're starting to play with your thumb, especially if you're starting to play like I do, and I take my hand, swing away back here too. So by taking your thumb, making sure you slap on top of the bridge, and take this hand, just move that together like that, just coordinate the 2 together. Now again, you still have to press down, make sure that the strings are coming all the way down on top of the fret. And again, you hear and just take it all the way down to the last fret, and that's all that's the basic elements of just how this technique is done. There's so many ways of doing it, but this is the most simplest way of doing it.
Now, when I see you do some of those like 30-second note sounding riffs where you're using both the right hand and the left hand in some sort of really interesting combination like that, are there exercises you can do with the Buddha rope to strengthen that technique?
Absolutely. You can use the chromatic technique, but the best way I've found to use that technique in terms of exercises is just using basically like a root and a fifth kind of combination, using the first finger and the last finger. So starting off with striking the string with this hand, and then slapping the thumb, you get 2 notes. The reason why you're not hearing this note here because there's no pickup up here, so this is the basic way of doing so. Start here, using the first finger, the thumb, coming back behind with the thumb, slapping. Now add the other finger in, you start to pluck, so it goes something like this. So now you have 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... Now you can take this chromatically down as well. Go to the next set of strings, and the next set of strings as well. And then when you get good at it, you can start to speed it up. But the thing is, you gotta always make sure your fingers come all the way down on the fretboard, so that you can strengthen your fingers as you're developing this technique.
Now, can we hear that without the rope, so we can see what the hell the left hand is actually doing?
That's right, because we have no microphone down there, so yeah, you can't really hear anything. So now, without the rope, you have, well, I'll do it again slowly. You have the hammer, you have the thumb, you have the finger from the left hand, and you have the pull. So I'm gonna start off slowly so that they won't get lost, because it's really a crazy technique when it's played in its full, speed. So I'm gonna start slowly.
And all you need is this rope, right? I mean, get the rope, you'll be able to do this, no problem, right?
Yeah, the Buddha rope, man. I mean,
Remember that royalty we talked about now, right?
Oh yeah,
it was 50-50, was it, or 60-40?
Actually, you started off with, it was like 5%,
So anyways, on that technique that you just did right there, are there ways to take that basic concept and then, of course, move the left hand around the neck to access different sound sources?
Oh, absolutely. See, with this technique, you could play any group of notes you want to play, opposed from just playing like a slap technique where and you have like a faulty ghost note, and then you have the note coming off of one finger. You can use all the fingers now.
Now, from a drummer's perspective, it almost looks like you're doing a right-left, right-left, right-left sticking, single-stroke sticking kind of concept here. Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I started playing drums first, and I took that technique and applied it to the bass. So I'm basically a frustrated drummer on the bass.
Well, all of us drummers are glad that you're not playing drums anymore, believe me. So.
All right. Well, the way I use this technique, basically, of course, chromatically, and I can use it all sorts of different ways also. I mean, I'll show that as well. So I'll start off with this chromatically, starting with the thumb, hammer, and then thumb, then slap with the fourth finger, and then pluck. So now I'm going to go chromatically down the bass, and it goes something like this.
All right. Now, you also will sometimes do some arpeggiated chords and voicings with this technique as well, right?
Exactly. We'll take a simple one, like just a root, fifth, an octave. Okay, and then we'll start to move, just going up first, and then I'll show how I do it coming back down as well. Now I'm going to go back down.
Are you incorporating other fingers in there besides your index finger when you do that, or is it all thumb and index finger at that point?
Oh, no. At that point, it's basically all the fingers, but for this particular technique, I'm starting off with the thumb, then the index finger, and then the second finger from that. So I'm just going like this. And that's what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
Now you can also take this technique and you can also play like a major seventh or a major nine or anything. So you can take like a chord like this, major seventh chord, and apply the same technique to that, and it sounds like this. You can also do it with major nine as well.
So I'm assuming that these techniques can be used in either a groove or solo context, right?
Right, yeah. But you know, none of this stuff works if you don't use it in a musical situation. So with that in mind, let's hit the stage. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Hope you learned something. And remember, practice hard and take care, and God bless.